Hello and a very warm welcome to this month's Pacecast. I'm Anita Pace and thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to welcome to the studio today Robin Simmons. Robin is the Chief Executive of Wilkin Chapman Rollits, the region's largest law firm, which is as a result of a recent merger between two very established firms, Wilkin Chapman and Rollits. So we're going to learn more about the merger, what it means for the firm, its people and its clients. I'm also looking forward to learning more about Robin, his successful career to date and how he's got to where he is today. Hello and welcome to the Pacecast, Robin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So as all our listeners and viewers will know, we always ask our guest to bring in, I'm looking because I can see what you've brought in, something that's meaningful to them. So I didn't know what you had brought in today, so I'm looking forward to hearing all about it and why it's important to you.
Absolutely.
So what have you brought?
So I've brought in today this rather splendid book, which is this came up. I came across this during the merger that you mentioned in the introduction, and it commemorates a royal visit to Hull in 1884. And at that time, Albert Rollitt was the mayor of Hull, and he, of course, founded the law firm Rollits about 40 years prior to this visit. And I picked this because it struck me. And it just reminded me really quite how well established the law firm Rollits is. It's been around for, if I can do the maths, 180 something years. And Wilkin Chapman has been around 125 years this year. So two really well-established firms. And when I saw this booklet, it just jumped out at me because I thought, wow, these two firms have been around so long. They are so well-established and deep-rooted in their respective communities, Rollits in Hull and York, of course. And what an honour it is for me personally to be the CEO of the merged business. So that's why I picked this out, really. And then the next thing that struck me when I was thinking about that was, well, you know, these are two really well-established firms with great heritage, and we're bringing them together into of course, a very modern world of legal tech and AI and all things modern and technology-driven. And I thought that was quite a nice sort of shift as well.
Yeah.
So anyway,
so what is the book? Is it a book of photographs of the visit?
No, it's a book of sort of thank yous and signatures.
Okay.
It was the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. Google tells me it was the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh who visited in October 1884 and met with Albert Rollitt. And no doubt.
And why? Do you know why they visited Albert Rollitt?
I don't know specifically why. I imagine it was Hull at the time. As it is now, of course, was no doubt a very significant place in the country. I would imagine, given its maritime history,
its
etc.
unique position.
So I imagine it could have had something to do with that. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting and was a sort of nod to the past, and then a sort of a look to the future as well.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Right, let's start back to the beginning then. I'm interested in how you got to where you are today. So let's start with your childhood. Talk to us about your upbringing and where did it all start? Okay,
so I was born in Bedford, or down south as my colleagues like to say. Born in Bedford, one of 5 siblings, so it was always great fun. Slightly chaotic, lots going on.
And where were you in the pecking order?
I was bang in the middle.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so I have a sister, a half brother, 2 stepsisters, and I'm in the middle of those 5. Right. So it was always eventful, great fun. We're just a typical busy family, busy household, I would say. So born in Bedford, grew up in Bedford, went to school there. Had a fantastic time at school, really enjoyed school. My mum would definitely say enjoyed it too much and was focused on the wrong things.
Interesting.
But had a great time. Far too. As I think we've mentioned before, Anita, I still am, but I was really into my sport from a very young age. And mum would say I spent far too much time doing that and not enough time learning.
Okay.
But I did. It's true, of course, as well. I spent a lot of time playing sport and played a number of different sports to a fairly reasonable level in terms of age grade. It was never good enough to do any of them as a career, so I had to find something else to do.
Did you have a favourite sport?
Favourite sport, probably rugby.
Rugby Union, I'm guessing.
Rugby Union, I know we're in rugby league territory here, but rugby union, I do follow rugby league as well.
Dare I ask which team?
rugby league.
Yeah.
I better not say.
No,
I think it's probably safer not to.
It probably is safer. Let's move on. Yes.
So rugby probably favourite, but played a number of other team sports mainly. And I think whilst it was a distraction from the studies, what it certainly taught me was, as so many people would say, it just gave me that first insight into being part of a team, teamwork, camaraderie, morale, leading a team on occasion.
Competitive? Would you say you were competitive?
I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
It really played into my competitive spirit, and that's continued throughout my life and my career. And I've certainly even still now, I still think about sporting situations, team situations in a sporting concept, and link them to business and how I go about trying to lead teams and trying to motivate people in a business context. So that was a really fun but also quite important part of my early life, I suppose.
I'm just interested because I'm quite competitive. I'm very competitive. Would you say you're a good loser then?
No,
Okay,
not really.
So how would you deal with that situation?
I think you learn a lot more from losing. I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche because it's true, isn't it? So I always made, probably at a younger age, I doubt I appreciated the benefits of losing, but looking back as we get older, we perhaps can better. So certainly learned more from losing than winning. Learned a lot about myself in terms of how you respond to a situation where you've lost. And of course, you lose in life as well, don't you?
You do.
After the kind of childlike sporting adventures, learning how, thinking about how I responded and how I could respond better to those losing situations.
But it does build resilience and determination,
Certainly.
and I think that in society today, I think that's maybe lacking to some degree, certainly with the younger generation, that resilience and knowing how to bounce back from situations. But that's a whole different podcast. Let's move on. So you're a good student. Well, you can't have been a bad student because you've done very well. So despite the distraction of the sport, you clearly academically did okay.
Yes, well enough. Could have done better. I seem to remember some of my school reports saying could do better,
Okay.
but certainly well enough. And I think I'd be a better student now than I was then, but certainly well enough.
But you enjoyed school, which is important.
Absolutely.
So university?
University, I went to London University and studied business and management there for 4 years, including a year in Germany, which was a really, really interesting time.
Why Germany?
Germany, because I had a sort of a minor subject of German as part of the degree. The main bit was business and management, and then we were able to add modules on, as you still can. And I added German onto mine, and that included spending a year there, which was great fun, and my first opportunity to adapt to a completely different culture.
Yeah, and you can no doubt speak German. Or you could then.
I could then, I can't now.
Right, okay.
I can still understand it pretty well, but I can't speak it, unfortunately, which is a real shame.
Yeah, it is.
But unfortunately, if you don't like anything, if you don't practice it all the time, it goes, doesn't it? But again, that was a really really important sort of part of learning and growing up,
And
I
at that
suppose,
stage,
being away from home.
At that stage, did you know what you wanted to do for a career, or were you still finding your feet?
Still finding my feet, certainly. I didn't know what I wanted to do for a career when I left school, and I still didn't really know what I wanted to do for a career when I left university. So I left London University after 4 years with a better degree grading than school-wise, so that was good.
So Mum was pleased?
Mum was pleased, and I was on an upward trajectory in terms of academics, so that was good. Still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but managed to get onto a graduate trainee scheme at a company called United Business Media, which was a FTSE 100 business at the time.
And what made you apply there?
I didn't really know what to do, what I wanted to do, to be honest, Anita. I knew I wanted to do something in business.
Yeah.
and that was obviously a fairly broad church in terms of opportunities. And this opportunity arose to get onto a sort of a well-renowned graduate scheme at a well-known company. And I thought, well, I don't quite know what I want to do, but if I can get into that business, then I imagine opportunities will present themselves and things will start to clarify in my mind what I want to do. And that was very much in the marketing sphere as well. So that was my sort of first foray into the commercial world, was in marketing, which of course has been helpful throughout.
Yes,
because it's key to what a lot of us do, isn't it? So yeah, that was my sort of university part of my life, and then into my first job.
So talk to me about your time there then, and what sort of roles were you doing? Because on these graduate schemes, you move around, don't you? And you try different areas of the business.
Absolutely. So I spent the first couple of years on the graduate scheme, which was, as I say, 2 years moving around the business, understanding the various products and services that the business offered at the time, and then over a period of time, I came out of that scheme and into the business proper, and then I started to work my way through the ranks to some extent, and then after.
And were you going down a particular route, such as finance or marketing, once you finished the graduate scheme? Because people tend to kind of go one way.
Yeah, they do. And in that company, I went into a very general role,
right? Okay.
Which actually stood me in really good stead, because I'm still in a very general role now, and I have been largely throughout my career, and it started really there. So after finishing the formalities of the training, I moved into a portfolio of products and worked my way through that part of the business, and fairly quickly became what was called a publisher, which meant I was basically running a small group of products, and they were B2B magazines and exhibitions and bolt-on products and services. And that gave me my first taste of managing a P&L and running a small team and being responsible for sales and for marketing and for production and editorial and all these types of things that make these products happen and be produced. So that was what I went on to do after the training aspect of my role at UBM, and then my last role there, I came out of the product specific world, if you like, into a more corporate world, and I moved to become head of corporate development for the company.
Right. Okay.
Now, the company changed names throughout my time there. There were various mergers and acquisitions, and I moved with the business as parts of it were required. So at the end of my time there, we were called Centaur Media, which I believe still exists. That's where I was a publisher, and that's where I became head of corporate development. And that was great, because what that did was that took me out of the sort of running a part of the business, which was great, and gave me that insight into leading people and P&L and financial management, etc. But it took me sort of back a step, I suppose, and forced me and enabled me to see the whole company and how it operates. And I was working with the chief exec and the chair at the time, and supporting them in terms of formulating their strategy and implementing it. And that was fantastic.
And how old would you have been around this time?
I would have been in my late 20s, early 30s.
So you're getting great exposure to the top people in the firm at quite a young age, really.
I was, and that was really what was so appealing about making that move from publisher into that corporate development role, because it was the exposure. Yeah. So to be around the CEO and the chair at that time, and at my age, and to be learning and soaking everything up, and to be in board meetings or part of board meetings and involved in merger discussions. It's all, at the time, of course, I didn't quite know what relevance it would have, but of course with what's happened very recently, it was my first taste of that. Very exciting.
And were you still studying as well at this time?
I did. Towards the latter part of my time at Centaur, as we were now called, I started studying for an MBA, which was all. I thought at the time that it would be. I was starting to realise that I wanted to move into business leadership over a period of time. and I was advised, and it seemed very sensible that, you know, to undertake an MBA would be a great sort of supplement to my other qualifications. So I started studying for that while still working. So evenings and weekends, that was tough. But it was, because it was tough, it gave me some more resilience, I think, and some more skills around, you know, just being able to organise your time and focus and knowing what you needed to do, etc. So I started studying for that, and then finished that and got a really good grade. So the academics are still on an upward trajectory. They stopped there, by the way. I haven't done any more studying since, and I don't intend to. But they were still on an upward trajectory to that point. So finished the MBA, and this is where a bit of luck came in. And I think we all, or certainly I, needed a bit of luck along the way, and things happen at the right time for you. And at that point in time, when I had that great exposure in that corporate role at Centaur, I'd had some good foundations as well through the trainee scheme, had the MBA now under my belt as well. And at that point, some of the bigger law firms in internationally and in the country were starting to hire non-lawyers to help the lawyers manage the business for
side
them.
Of it. You
know, they were and are lawyers, and that's what they're trained to do. And it became a thing that the big law firms would start to hire specialist business managers. So there was I, and I thought this looks interesting as a next step into a slightly different sector. And some opportunities came around, and I ended up taking one of them, and that was at DLA Piper.
Which is a huge firm.
Which is a mega firm. Yeah, one of the biggest in the world still. It was then and still is. Roots in Yorkshire, of course. Yeah. Product of a number of mergers, like most law firms, but very strong roots in Sheffield particularly, and Leeds to some extent as well. So a lot of the leadership when I was there, a lot of the leaders were from Yorkshire, so that was interesting.
And where were you based then when you went to DLA?
Well, I was based in London, but I spent, as I still do, albeit now in a slightly smaller geographical area, I spent most of my time travelling around the UK offices, of which there were 7 or 8, and the international offices. So it was great fun. So I got to really travel the world in the name of doing my job. Yeah.
Still relatively young then, so in your 30s, would you say? Still in my early mid-30s at this point, so relatively young. Still had some energy left. So the role there was, well, it developed. I was there for about 10 years, and as roles do, that it developed from managing a part of the business, and it was great exposure and a steep learning curve, because it was my first role in legal services, of course, in a partnership model, which is quite different to a corporate model. But I was given responsibility almost immediately to manage one of the practice groups. So it was a big practice group with nearly 1,000 people around the world. And you were responsible for that?
Responsible for that operation.
Right. Yeah. Wow. 1,000 people.
1,000 people, along with others, of course. There was a global practice leader who was effectively a CEO. Yeah. And I was effectively his COO. Yeah. And then we had a leadership team around us as well. So it's never down to one person, but it was great exposure for me and great experience to manage that operation around the world. And as I said, got to see a lot of the world as well while doing the job, which was good fun. So I did that for about 10 years, as I say, and then an opportunity arose at Baker McKenzie, another enormous global law firm.
Are they? Would you say they're the largest in the world?
I think they were at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I keep seeing the league tables popping up, and I think they've been overtaken. There's one or two US firms who have really grown quite amazingly quickly in the last 10 years or so, which I think are now larger than Baker's. But at the time, I think they and DLA were 1 and 2 in terms of size in the world, something like that. So it was great. It was great experience.
I'm assuming these opportunities you were headhunted for these roles. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So absolutely, yes, exactly that. So in the DLA role towards the end of my time there, as well as doing that practice group role I talked about. I was also starting to help the executive committee there develop the Africa business, which was somewhere which was fast growing. There was great opportunity for big law firms to grow their businesses in Africa and in other parts of the world relating to Africa. So I took on that role as well as the day job, if you like. And what that seemed to do was put me on the radar for opportunities vis-a-vis Africa. And there was a bit of a move for big law firms wanting to ramp up their capability and their operations on that continent. So Baker's contacted me, and I ended up moving across to them, literally just across town to them, to help them develop their Africa strategy.
So you weren't based in Africa then?
No, I was based in London.
Oh, right.
Spent quite a lot of time in Africa, but still based in London. And Africa was one of the few parts of the world which I hadn't got to see much of in the DLA role. Now, that is absolutely no part of the selection process, was because I wanted to tick Africa off the geographic experience, but it was quite neat that I hadn't spent much time there in a work context. So started to spend much more time in Africa, but based in London.
In Cape Town?
Johannesburg? In South Africa, mainly Johannesburg, being the sort of the commercial centre. They tended to have the conferences tended to be in Cape Town, so that was quite nice.
To get more people there, I guess.
To get more people to fly in.
And were you married at this time in terms of your personal life? Where were you?
Yeah, married with 2 kids at that
they were
time.
in London?
They were in. We were still living in London, and then we moved out of London into back to Bedfordshire. Interestingly,
but you were travelling obviously a lot to Africa. So when you were in Africa, did you feel safe?
Most of the time, yes. More safe in some of the countries than others. I think one of the most exciting countries that I spent a fair amount of time in was Nigeria, and Lagos specifically. And it was exciting because Lagos is, I don't think anyone quite knows how many people live in Lagos, but there are estimates of 30, 40, 50 million people. It is an incredible, bustling, energetic, entrepreneurial city with the average age of the population is in its early 20s or something like that. It's incredible. And there's great opportunity there, and no doubt that's still the case, even though I haven't been there for a few years now. But one of the challenges in Lagos was the security side of things, and how safe you would feel. And it's something that's it's one of those things that sticks with you, isn't it? That one of my memories of travelling to Lagos on a fairly regular basis was that we had to have an armed support set up from the airport into the city to the hotel. So colleagues and I would be in one vehicle, and there'd be armed guards in that vehicle, and then there'd be 2 more 4x4s, one in front and one behind, which would also have armed individuals in those cars. So that was a bit disconcerting, but it got me. You get used to things, don't you?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about it from your family's perspective. So you've got a wife at home with 2 young children at this time. And she was okay with you doing all this then? Yeah,
she seemed to be, and I'm not sure what that tells us really. but she was. She was, and to be honest, working for a law firm, and a big global law firm like Baker McKenzie at the time, every possible measure was taken to ensure or at least mitigate the risk, and to ensure that we were as safe as possible. And to be fair, with those measures around us, personally, I did feel quite safe, and perhaps it was completely over the top, but I guess it comes back to that quite risk averse nature of a big global business, which needs to look after its people, make sure they're safe wherever they're going about doing their business. But it's a great look at the time, and certainly looking back, it's even those aspects of the role. They're just all part of the experience, aren't they? And it's something I remember forever.
I bet. So Baker McKenzie, for how many years were you there then?
About 6 years there.
Okay, and then Headhunter came knocking again?
Yes, indeed. Timing, a lot of bit of time, it all comes down to timing and a bit of luck, doesn't it? But Headhunter came knocking again, and in terms of where my mind was at the time, I'd had a great time, 16 or so years at that point, working for two of the biggest and best law firms in the world, working with some wonderful people, seeing the world and having a good time and learning a lot, and learning how successful law firms are run and grown and developed. So it was fantastic. But what I knew at that point I wanted to do was to be responsible for an entire law firm. And the motivation there was I wanted to be in a position where I could have a I'll say even greater, but have a greater impact day to day than is perhaps possible in a massive organisation like the two I had been at, and to have more influence and for it to be a bit more personal perhaps. So I was looking for a role which enabled me to do that, and as you said, Headhunter came knocking and the opportunity arose to join Wilkin Chapman. This is obviously pre-merger. Yeah. So Wilkin Chapman at the time, this was about 4 years ago now. Got chatting to some of the leadership team at the firm at the time, all of whom are still there, and it seemed like a great place to be. It had a really nice culture, some great people. I was interested in the region. I didn't know as much about this region as I did about other parts of the country and maybe the world. So I was intrigued by that. It sort of satisfied my curiosity in terms of getting to know a new part of the world. And so I came across in September. I think it was September 2021.
Right.
To join Wilkin Chapman as CEO, and then we spent 3 or so years driving the business forward. A clear strategy that we put in place, and I can talk a bit more about that. Yeah,
tell us a bit more about. So you arrive and you've got, I'm assuming, some ideas about what you'd like to do with the firm together with the leadership team.
Yeah.
So anything that stands out as that you wanted in terms of your priorities, what did you do?
Well, our vision, if you like, from the outset was and still is to be the outstanding law firm in our region. And we think about our region in BBC terms, we think about it as look north. And we wanted to be and still do the outstanding law firm in this region. And that's our vision. That was our vision. It still is our vision.
Because even prior to the merger, you were still a large firm. Wilkin Chapman was still a large firm in the region.
Yeah, we were. When I joined, we were about 400 people across 4 offices. So it was already one of, if not the largest law firm in the region. Yeah. And our plan still is to be that leading outstanding firm in the region. And the merger with Rollits, of course, is an absolutely key part of that, and a big step in the direction of where we want to go. So we completed this merger, as you know, at the beginning of April, and we're now nearly 550 people, and we've got 6 offices. So we really are a very significant regional law firm, even on a national basis now. We're comfortably in the top 100 law firms, and we're in a really good position to kick on from here and to grow. And we've got a really clear strategy which sits behind that vision, and it's all about, for me personally, it has been throughout my career, and certainly in terms of this role and this firm, it starts with the people. It's all about making sure we are able to attract and recruit the best talent in the region and outside the region, and bring it into the region as well. And once we've attracted that great talent into the business, we want to make sure that we've got career paths for them, so they can stay with us for the long term and develop their careers here. And a big part of that, and part of the reason this merger was a good idea and is working so well already, is that the cultures of Rollits and Wilkin Chapman were so similar. So combining the two from that perspective has been relatively easy.
I want to come on to the culture in a second. But before that, just talk to me about how the merger came about then, because you were competitors up until a few weeks ago.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Who came up with the idea?
So we on the, we're trying to talk about on which sides, but the Wilkin Chapman side initiated the discussion a little over a year ago. And it was very clearly part of our plan, part of our strategy to be that law firm that we want to be in the region. So we initiated the discussion as part of the strategy. But then as soon as we started talking to the leadership at Rollits, it quickly moved beyond, well, this is part of our plan to be the biggest and the best law firm in the region. And it was very much, gosh, we're very similar. And the firms have known each other for a long time. I mean, Wilkin Chapman's been around 125 years and Rollits 180 something years.
Yeah.
They've known each other. The firms have known each other a long time. We've done lots of work together and against each other on different sides of deals, together on deals and on different matters. So there's there's some good relationships. There were some good relationships across the firms already. Also, there was quite an amount of movement of people between the firms as well. So there was such a lot of natural glue, if you like, to start off with, which was great. And that became very clear when we started talking to each other at the beginning of 2024. So we spent a year and a bit getting to know each other better, doing the due diligence, of course, and everything we talked about and everything we found out about each other reinforced the fact that the merger was a really good idea. It's a really good idea. We asked some of our key clients, legacy Rollits clients, legacy Wilkin Chapman clients, what they thought about it, and they were universally supportive as well, because they can see, of course, the benefits of working with a bigger law firm with deeper, broader experience in every area, whether it's corporate law, litigation, private client, family, whichever area of law it is. We now have an even deeper, broader capability.
And a bigger geographic footprint as well.
Absolutely.
So you're more accessible to more people. We mentioned it a few minutes ago about the culture. Talk to me about the similarities of the two cultures originally from Rollits and Wilkin Chapman, and what makes it unique now as Wilkin Chapman Rollits. It's clearly very important to you.
Absolutely. I think culture is so important. I think without, again, it's cliched, isn't it? But it's because it's true. Without a strong, positive culture, it's very hard to bring people together and to implement whatever strategy you might try and put in place. So it's at the forefront of everything we do and everything we think about as a combined firm. And what was clear during the merger discussions was that both Rollits and Wilkin Chapman had a very similar approach to culture. And it's all about teamwork and service and approachability and friendliness and kindness, but also delivering results as well. We have some shared values which I won't sort of trot off, but that's what they're all about. They're all about teamwork, approachability, and results as well. And both firms approach that in the same way. And the fact that people have moved between the firms and slotted in so seamlessly was further endorsement that the cultures are very similar. So we've brought these two firms together, these two cultures together, and while we need to continue working hard to maintain that great positive culture, we've got a wonderful starting point in that they're quite similar, and we can build on that, because I think a lot of firms, particularly law firms, talk about culture, but not all of them deliver on that culture, and it's about living it, isn't it, day to day? And that starts at the top. It starts with the CEO.
Well, I was going to ask about that, because I was going to say culture starts at the top. So you're the chief executive. So do you think the culture of the firm reflects your personality?
I think it does, actually, and I can't take credit for putting the culture of the firm in place, because I've only been here for four years. It's been well established and worked on really hard by a number of people who have been at the firm for 30, even in some cases 40 years. But I've been lucky enough to inherit this culture. And
describe it to me. Describe the culture.
Well, it's friendly, it's approachable, it's open. People are encouraged to say what they think, and it's safe to do that. Everyone is there. There's a lack of hierarchy,
right?
We're still, whilst we're becoming quite a big firm, we're still small enough for, say, for me or for our senior partner or for our leadership team to know most of the people in the business. That's becoming more and more challenging, of course, as we grow. But that's an indication of the, how friendly it is as a firm. But that's not at the expense of performance as well. So, we do work hard. We don't push people as hard perhaps as some of the city firms do, but we work hard. We do some of the best work in the market, and we recruit the best people in the market. But we can do that in an environment which is friendly, approachable, very team focused, and that's what we strive to do. And I'm not saying we always get it right, because I don't think any business does, but in the main we do. But we work hard on it, and it does start from the top, and it starts with the leadership team and with me, and we have to be seen to be living those values all the time.
Okay.
And we make sure that's the case.
So congratulations on the merger. I know it's had a great reception. Talk to me about a typical day as Chief Executive of Wilkin Chapman Rollits. What does that involve? For you, I mean.
Typical day. Well, it never turns out how I might plan the day to be, or not always anyway. But it's a fairly typical CEO role. I chair the management board and lead that group and lead. We have a fantastic leadership team. As I said earlier, it's never about one person or just a few people. We're really lucky, both from legacy Rollits, legacy Wilkin Chapman people. We've got an amazing group of leaders, some of whom have been with the firm a long time, and some a team who are newer to the firm and who are bringing fresh perspectives as well from different environments, which I think is really important as well. So we've got an amazing. I'm lucky to be surrounded by an incredible leadership team. So I spend a lot of time working with those individuals and collectively to drive our strategy forward, frankly, and that can involve all manner of activities, of course, and it shifts from time to time. Certainly, for a couple of years, and we were Wilkin Chapman at the time, we had a very big drive on recruitment, and we focused, and I personally focused really closely on recruitment and bringing in some really talented partners and other lawyers into the business. So that was a big focus, and that shifts into different areas at different times. But I spend a lot of time travelling around the offices. I
was going to say, how visible are you in the firm?
I try to be as visible as I can. That plays into all sorts of key parts of our strategy, and culture's possibly the most important one. I think it's important for me as CEO and for other leaders in the business to be visible and to go and visit the offices, and not when they get to an office lock ourselves away in a room and work necessarily, but to walk around, speak to people, ask them how they are, and just be approachable and contactable. So I do spend a lot of time doing that.
Press in the flesh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Out and about.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on a very successful career to date. Let's talk a bit about what you've learned over the years, and with the benefit of hindsight, what would you say to your younger self? If you imagine someone at the time when you were, I don't know, leaving university and you weren't quite sure exactly where you wanted to go, any advice you'd give that younger version of you?
I'd say personally, I wish I'd probably studied a bit harder a bit earlier in life. But
to please your mum.
That's to please my mum. That's a very specific thing. More generally, I would say, if you don't quite know what you want to do in life, don't worry too much about it at that stage. Some people, I think, are lucky enough, aren't they, to have, they've got their careers mapped out from quite a young age, and I was always quite envious of that, and I probably still am, but it wasn't the case for me. And I would say to people, if that's you, don't worry about it. Keep learning, keep an open mind, because if you, and this is the thing, I don't think I don't think talent's the big thing necessarily, or ability. I think it's about hard work, about persistence, about attitude, the resilience which you mentioned earlier, and it's about and consistency. It's doing that consistently, week after week, year after year. And if you do that, and if you're open-minded, opportunities are going to arise. We may take a sort of slightly roundabout route to our end point, but I think if you approach everything with that curiosity, that open mind, that hard work, and that consistency is so important, then opportunities will arise. So that's the advice. That's one piece of advice anyway I'd give to my younger self.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anything that I hate the word regret, but anything you would have done differently, or any mistakes you've made that you want to share with us?
I don't want to share. That's the key. Thank you for putting that bit in. I made plenty of mistakes, like most people, and happy to admit, not necessarily happy, prepared to admit them. I think part of being a good leader is being self-aware and self-critical, and realizing that you're not good at certain things and you can do things better, and maybe you can't do them, maybe you need help, you need someone else to help you do them, and that's about getting the right team around you, isn't it? So that's sort of a bit of a general philosophy of mine. More specifically, something I regret that I'm prepared to share with you. I probably think I should have backed myself a bit more, a bit earlier, maybe. Yeah. Been a bit more confident in where I was heading, or my abilities. So I would probably say that to myself. I could have. It's probably only relatively recently where I've felt confident, comfortable, if you like, in terms of what I'm doing, and
yet you've had such a successful career. If you think about the opportunities you've had, people have recognised your talent throughout your career, and yet you still feel that confidence didn't come till more recently.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the flip side of that self-awareness, isn't it? And that self-critique. But that's how I'm built, and hopefully it's helped me in certain ways as well. But
proudest achievement? I'm sure there's many, but
proudest achievement. Proudest achievement. There's a few achievements that I and teams I've worked with I'd be very proud of. I think the one that stands out for me is a very recent one, and that is completing this merger between Rollits and Wilkin Chapman. That really, it's hard for me to. It's obviously fresh in the mind. It's very real. It's very now, but it's hard for me to look beyond that in terms of a proud achievement, because the bringing together of two fantastic law firms with great heritage, full of brilliant people, is an incredibly rewarding experience. It's been quite tough over the last year, 18 months at times for a whole number of us. And there's a lot of colleagues who have worked incredibly hard to make it happen. But to see it come to life on the 1st of April this year, it was a Tuesday, and we were fully operational across all 6 offices from first thing in the morning. That is an incredibly rewarding experience, and it's hard for me to look beyond that in terms of a highlight.
Yeah, again, congratulations. I do want to ask you, what keeps you awake at night? So presumably up until the 1st of April, you had quite a few sleepless nights. But now, is there anything that you're worried about professionally?
Well, I think the nature of the job, there's always quite a lot to worry about, isn't there? And it would be, I think it'd be foolish not to be thinking about all of these things. I think a couple of things that certainly keep me awake at night, because they're just important, and they are now, and that is integration. That's making sure that the two businesses are properly integrated. So we are operationally, we are integrated from an IT, from a systems, etc. perspective. That's great, but it's the softer side of integration which is so important. And we work really hard on that in terms of arranging events to get. Even though the merger's now happened, we're doing a lot of getting together, getting to know each other. It's great to see legal teams working together almost from day one on matters. That's fantastic. But that integration piece certainly keeps me awake at night, and we have to be alive to that, and a number of us have got to keep working really hard on that over the next months and indeed years to make sure we maximise the benefit of joining these two great firms together. So integration is one, and I think one of the other things is maintaining the momentum, because we've got incredible momentum over the last 4 years. The firm has been growing at quite a significant rate. We've been really quite successful, and that's great. But the pressure is on to maintain that and keep that momentum going, keep that growth going. And growth, as you get bigger, gets more difficult.
Well, that was going to be my final question, actually, about the future. So do you anticipate more acquisitions, possibly? I mean, not that this was an acquisition, it was a merger, but growth is clearly important to you and the rest of the leadership team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some more of the same, perhaps?
Certainly more growth. Growth is definitely an important part of the plan going forward.
Do you ever see the firm becoming growing beyond? You refer to it as the Look North region.
Yes.
Beyond the Look North region.
That's a really interesting question. We'll always be considering options and opportunities, and it's a really interesting legal market at the moment. There's more and more M&A going on than I think certainly there's ever been in my career. So that's exciting. That presents opportunities. I get almost daily approaches of, are you interested in this firm or that firm? So it's about being selective. I think it's important that we stay focused. And we focus on what we're good at and where we're strong, and at the moment that's in our region. So I think the strategy will continue to focus on the Look North region, but we'll certainly be looking to grow further, both organically and potentially inorganically in a very selective way. But for the time being, the focus is very much on making this merger work and making sure we're fully integrated and getting the most out of it.
Yeah. Something to keep you busy.
Absolutely.
Well, again, thank you, Robin. Thanks for sharing your story with us. Again, congratulations on the merger. And I look forward to seeing the future growth of Wilkin Chapman Rollits in the years to come. So before we let you go, it's our tradition to ask you a question that was left by our previous guest. The previous guest doesn't know who they're leaving the question for, and I will be asking you to leave a question for our next guest. So the question I have for you here is, what is the most unusual decision that has paid off for you?
That's a really... Tough is the right word. Question. I wasn't expecting that one. I think I probably haven't made too many what I would call unusual decisions. I'm quite considered and analytical, and I work with lawyers.
Have you ever done the colour psychometric profiling?
We have recently done a behavioural. As part of all the partners and directors go through a leadership training program at Wilkin Chapman, now Rollits, and we've recently done a profiling exercise as part of that. It was I can't remember the name of it, but it was the analytical driver, amiable, expressive one, the 4-colour one. Yeah. And I'm in the analytical driver category, which is blue and red in that model. And I'm trying to bring out the amiable, expressive side of things as well. But that's where I was. Sorry,
I interrupted you, but it's just when you say analytical, I immediately start thinking blue.
Yeah. Yeah, and blue, it is blue in that model as well. So perhaps all the models use blue for analytical. So I'm an analytical driver according to that model anyway.
But most chief execs have to have the drive and the energy as the leader of the organisation. Sorry, I'm interrupting your answer.
No, not at all. The bottom line, I don't make too many unusual decisions, or try not to. I think that would be unhelpful if I did. But one decision I made, which has absolutely paid off, and some people might think was unusual, was moving from a big global law firm, or two actually, one after the other, to a much smaller but still large regional firm. And that might be considered unusual. I didn't at the time, and I certainly don't now, because it's absolutely paid off in terms of personal and professional experience and gratification. It's been absolutely a fantastic move, the best move I've ever made career-wise. So that might be considered slightly unusual. From my perspective, and hopefully from the business's perspective, it's certainly paid off.
Yeah.
So I'll choose that one for what was a very tough question.
It was a tough question.
Thank you to your previous guest.
And thank you for answering it. Thank you again, Robin. Thanks for taking the time out. What clearly is a very busy schedule to spend some time with us this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Anita.
That's it for this month. Thank you again for joining us. Please do get in touch with us if you'd like to suggest anyone for our Pacecast. And until next month, we'll see you then. Thanks again. Bye-bye.